to Career Uprising. I'm your host and professional career coach, Lorraine Rise. Join me as I guide you through an amazing journey of self-discovery and empowerment. If you are looking for work, changing careers, or stuck in a toxic job, then this is the show for you. I offer both practical and spiritual guidance to help you up-level and advance your career. Let's start the uprising. You are listening to episode 51, Dealing with a Bad Boss. Hey guys, how are you? How are you doing out there? I don't know. For some reason, I feel like I haven't recorded a show in a while or connected with you guys. I don't know why. I feel maybe I've just been focused on other things. I don't think that's the case, but it's good to be recording a show today. I feel like I have just had a lot going on and haven't really paid attention to this show as much as I want to. But anyway, so here I am. And, speaking of the show, I do have one piece of good news that I learned recently. We're at the 1 year mark now for the show, and we've surpassed 5,000 downloads. Woohoo! That is so exciting. So I want to take a minute to say thank you to you guys, of course, for listening. I love doing this show, and I plan to continue, and I'm so glad that it's resonating and people are downloading it. You can listen to this show on so many different outlets. Inflow Radio, of course, is the home, inflowradio.com, but I'm on Spotify, I am on Stitcher, TuneIn.com, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, whatever your preference is. We're really, really out there. So 5,000 downloads is awesome. Thank you guys so much to everyone who has been listening. So today's topic is a fresh one that we have not talked about at all. Dealing with a bad boss. Oh my goodness. I know that a lot of people out there, I think, can relate to this one, right? We've all probably had that bad boss, but, and I've had one for sure. And only one, though. I will say, when I was thinking about my own experiences relating to this topic, I really do have to consider myself pretty lucky. I've only had one person ever really that I worked for that I felt like didn't know what the heck they were doing and that I just couldn't work with and couldn't communicate with. And it was really good in a way. It was a tremendous learning experience for me. It was strange and it was uncomfortable too, because I'd always had really good bosses before. But I think it's an experience that I needed to go through and that everybody needs to experience, because we're always going to come in contact with difficult people. They're not going to go away, right? And difficult people are usually just different, right? They're just different from us. And that's why we label it difficult. But anyway, so it brought me back to that experience, and I was thinking about my own toxic boss that I have, and really just how grateful I am that by and large, I've had some really good experiences, but I certainly do have experience in dealing with difficult people and other people at work that you can't get along with. And I know how uncomfortable that is every day to go to work and hardly be even able to communicate with the one person really that you're supposed to have the best communication with. And that's your boss. That's such an important relationship. And I know what it's like to not even really respect them. And that's a tough place to be in, because you want to have respect for the person who has hired you and that you're working for. So if this is you at all, then listen to this whole show. That's what we're going to dive into. And so I will say too, the one thing that makes this topic, I think, really, really important is when you think about why people leave jobs and employee retention, it has actually been shown time and time again that the number one most important factor in retaining an employee is their relationship with their boss. More than money, more than the commute, or anything else. People are even willing to stay in jobs that pay less if they have a really good relationship and rapport with their boss. And that's powerful. It's actually been said too, you may have heard this, that people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses, right? And I think a lot of times that is true. So if you don't have trust and communication with the people that you work with, your engagement and your performance is going to decline. All right. And that hurts everybody's bottom line. So today, what I want to focus on first is what makes a bad boss. So we got to define that, right? Because I think it's probably different for a lot of people. But then towards the end, after the break, we'll talk about some practical strategies for how you can survive this situation and communicate with that boss from hell, right? So that's what we're going to do today. So let's dive in and think about what makes a boss bad. All right. So this is completely subjective, but I would say generally that a bad boss would be characterized as somebody maybe micromanaging, unsupportive, and maybe even aggressive or hostile. Somebody who just doesn't have a lot of tact or calls you out in front of other people, kind of watching you, breathing down your neck, overly criticizing you, setting impossible deadlines and expectations. These might be some things on your mind. You've got your own list though, and that's fine. I'm sure we could insert a lot more different things, but I would imagine those are some of the biggest complaints that you probably have, right? So why do they do this? Well, first you have to understand human behavior in general, right? Because what other people do is never because of you, ever. It's always because of them. We don't act as a result of other people. We act as a result of ourselves. You need to understand this fundamentally in order to absorb anything I'm going to say. It's true. Their needs, it's their perspective, their emotions, it's their filter. And just like you're acting out of your own filter and your own experiences as you should be. So we all have kind of a filter, so to speak, based on our own personality, our own experiences, etc. And that's what drives our choices and actions. So you need to understand that. Now, I've had clients who have dealt with really critical and overbearing bosses. And what I have seen is that they kind of take on the pain and the pressure and all that criticism as their own. And sadly, they absorb it into their identity. And this is so sad and so unnecessary. You are not what your boss says you are, or anyone else for that matter. Truthfully, I think accepting this is really step number one to working with a bad boss, is separating yourself and your self-esteem and confidence from whatever their perception of you is. But let's do this. Let's take a look at some of the reasons why people fail, quite frankly, at effectively managing and motivating other people. Because I think it's really important that we get to the underlying cause and reason of this. So, and this is all just my opinion and my experience, you guys. Of course, maybe you assumed that, but here's my take on this issue. So, why people are bad bosses? Number one, well, they might be insecure. When people are insecure about their own abilities and their own effectiveness, well, what do? They project it onto other people, of course, because that's so much more fun. That feels better, right? They deflect. And whether they even realize it or not, that's often what they do. So try putting yourself in your boss's mind and ask, what is it that they might be afraid of, maybe? Because when we're insecure, it means we're afraid of something. It does. That's just what that means. Because if you weren't afraid, you'd be totally secure and you wouldn't have a need to criticize other people. So if not, so think about that. Think about the insecurity factor and consider their personality and the position that they're in. And maybe it's possible that there's something you don't know or don't see that is making them insecure for some reason. And it probably has nothing to do with you. Micromanagers in particular, I think, are particularly scared people sometimes, right? That's why they feel the need to overly control the whole situation. So there's usually a lack of trust there. They don't either trust themselves or the company or the process or something in there. And it may seem like that means they don't have trust in you, but that isn't necessarily true. If they were fully confident and secure in themselves and within their span of control and the process and the team they have and everything, they wouldn't need to micromanage other people. So this is really good for all of you out there who have that micromanaging boss. Maybe you don't have a terrible boss, or a boss from hell, but maybe you do have a micromanager. Maybe this can help you to understand that behavior a little bit. There's usually an underlying insecurity there. Number 2, and I think that this is huge. This is so common and so likely in a lot of situations. Your boss just might be under a lot of pressure. So you never know what relationship your boss has with their boss. And you don't necessarily know or see what heat and what pressure they're experiencing on them. And that they might just be passing on to other people. A lot of this is unconscious too. They may not even realize themselves what they are doing or the effect that they're having on other people. Unfortunately, a lot of people do lack the self-awareness really to realize how they come across to other people. And I wouldn't assume just because somebody's in a leadership position that they have that level of self-awareness, unfortunately. I wouldn't assume that. All right. Some people don't handle stress and pressure well, and it affects their interactions with other people and their teammates. And when you have a team of people to manage as well as your own workload and expectations, it can be really difficult. So you really just have to put yourself in their shoes and kind of think, well, what might they be going through that I haven't thought of or that I don't know? And I'm not saying necessarily that excuses poor behavior or certainly not aggressiveness or hostility or anything like that. But sometimes it does explain it. And at least having an explanation for something can help you. Explaining is one thing, excusing is another. So let's separate those two things. But I think that it would bring you at least a baseline level of clarity and comfort to know or have an explanation as to why someone is acting the way they do. And when you understand the why behind the behavior, you can better fix it and course correct and change your reaction to them as a result. All right. So the third thing is number 3, many supervisors never receive any kind of training or support. And this is really critical. Some people may assume that just because somebody's a manager, that they've gone through manager training or they know what they're doing. Well, that is not true, unfortunately. They may not be receiving very much support themselves. So, I think that leadership development and leadership training is growing, which is a good thing. It's so needed because leadership is not necessarily just an inherent skill, and it can make a huge difference to have support system and to have strategies and training on how to manage other people. And this is not afforded to everyone. Most, I would say, probably high-level managers and maybe executives do receive some training, but that may or may not be the case with your boss. And the thing is too, sometimes when you get really high up, like executives, they kind of get a little out of touch with stuff sometimes. They may actually only have 1 or 2 direct reports at that point who have a bunch of direct reports branching out. So they may not have as much experience anymore. They may be a little bit more far removed from the trenches and daily operations and the nitty gritty of how to manage people. So don't think that just because someone's high up that they still remember all that and have all of that. Sometimes you actually lose touch with certain aspects of the business that way. But this is the same kind of principle that I tell people when they go on job interviews to remember that the person interviewing you doesn't necessarily know what they're doing or have any kind of interview training. They might be just shooting from the hip. You know what? They may not be given the right questions to ask or not ask, or how to evaluate a candidate. Don't assume they know these things. It's an unfortunate reality, I know, but it's true. So don't assume that your boss has received proper training or support in order to be able to do their job and manage you effectively. And this can make a big difference as well. So again, just another reason to not take things too personally when you're having trouble with your boss. Sometimes you need to be able to separate too when you're being criticized. Are they criticizing me, or are they just criticizing a behavior or a certain outcome that I produced? And there's a big difference between those two things. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk action and strategies for how to get you through this and survive working with your boss. Okay? We will take just a quick break and we'll be right back. Hey there, my listeners. We're on a short break and I have a question for you. Are you looking for a new job, but you don't know where to start? Or maybe you've been searching and it's taking too long and you're not getting any results. Many clients don't know how to launch an effective job search, and they spend months or even years looking. Well, I have a solution for that. My coaching program, Career Jumpstart, teaches you my proven 3-step strategy that has landed hundreds of clients amazing new jobs in about 60 days. In this program, I personally will guide you on how to confidently and authentically market yourself to employers, resulting in a better job faster. If that sounds like what you've been missing, head over to careeruprising.com and apply for my Career Jumpstart program today. That's careeruprising.com. All right, let's get back to our show. Hey, everybody, we are back. All right, so we've talked a little bit about how to identify if you have a bad boss and what does that mean. And I shared a little bit about my perspective on that. And my key message here is really that understanding is forgiving, right? And I'm not saying you need to just blanket forgiveness to everything that your boss says and does, but you do need to make an attempt to really understand them. Where are they coming from and what makes them the way that they are? And this is a brilliant life skill that you can apply to your spouse and to your kids and to everybody that you know. All right. So hopefully that will help you to understand a little bit why they are the way they are and figure out then how you want to thoughtfully and intentionally respond to them rather than just reacting, and maybe even manage them a little bit. Sometimes you have to manage your boss, right? Sometimes that's the way it works. But I will say this too. So, at the heart of my coaching philosophy is the concept of EQ, emotional intelligence. I am a big proponent of this, and I weave it into a lot of my coaching. I actually did a full show on it a couple of months ago. I want to say episode 30-ish, I think it was 30. And you should really go listen to it and dig it up in the archives. It's a great supplement, great piggyback to this. We're going to make a lot of connections to that other episode because emotional intelligence is so important to communication and relationships, so much that many execs and CEOs often get training and assessments done around emotional intelligence because it's such a huge indicator of success in life and in careers. And I think one of the best investments of time and money and whatever it takes that you can make is to develop your own emotional intelligence. More so than your book smarts and your IQ, okay? This will transform your relationships with yourself and other people. You'll learn better how to respond to other people and learn what should I take personally and what should I not. And that will free you so much. So there's a little book I want to recommend to you. It's fantastic. It's called Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Travis Bradberry. I love that book. Travis is really an expert in all things EQ, and I read this book earlier this year, and it is just packed with strategies and action tips to help you apply that concept and develop your own EQ and better recognize and respond to the behavior of your boss and other people. And it's a quick read too. It won't, it's quick, but it's powerful and it's packed with a lot of information, but it's quick to get through, which is great. It gets right to the point. So, but I also coach clients myself on EQ, and I do career counseling assessments that are fabulous at revealing your soft skills, your weaknesses, your blind spots. So this is a big part of who I am and how I help people. And it relates so well to today's topic as well. All right. But here's a couple other tips. So in my first action step really is for you to figure out, identify the behaviors that your boss is displaying that you don't like, maybe even write them out. So get clear on specifically, why are they a bad boss to you? What are the behaviors that are taking place and that you don't like, and why? Why are they bothering you? Why are those, quote, bad? Or not a good way to manage you. So get a lot of clarity first around the situation. And then I want you to think about the questions and things that I asked earlier, understanding their situation. Are they under pressure? Or do they not have training and support? I want you to kind of apply those concepts and those questions to your boss and see if that right there helps to give you some clarity and some insight into their behavior. Because it's really important to understand motivations and triggers. All right. So the better you understand what your boss does and more importantly, why, the better positioned you're going to be to deliver good results, manage expectations, set boundaries when you need to, and just avoid lose-lose situations for everybody. So put yourself in their shoes, really in their shoes. I mean, come out of your own mind for a minute and truly act as if you were in your boss's head, thinking like them, and ask yourself, as your boss, what is going on? Why are they acting this way? So a couple questions to think about too is, what do they care about? What matters most to them? Their priorities maybe aren't exactly the same as yours. Are they prioritizing something differently than you? And that's why there's friction. So think about, from your boss's perspective, what do they care about? And could that be something that I was overlooking or didn't know? What keeps them up at night? What scares them? What worries them? What pressures are they under? How do they measure success? And how do they measure failure? Maybe that's different than you. Oftentimes, when we have trouble communicating with other people, it's not because they are bad and we are good. It's because we are different than them. So we're bridging the gap and the differences. What pressure are they under themselves? This is huge, all right? So you really need to seek to understand other people. And I would say too that if all else fails and you can't come to a conclusion or a resolution, have you tried talking with them privately? I know this thought kind of scares people a little bit sometimes, but the alternative is for things to stay the same. I mean, what scares you more? Having a little one-on-one with your boss, or just biting the bullet, being quiet and nothing ever improves? I mean, you really want to think about, maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's worth a little bit of a difficult conversation or a little bit of temporary discomfort to just have a conversation and say, here's the behavior I'm noticing. I'm noticing you do this or that. Here's how I'm receiving that and perceiving it. How can we reconcile this? But also, you may need to acknowledge their strengths and support them. It could be that they don't have a lot of support. So perhaps, even though you're not their boss, maybe you could think, how can I support them better? How can I tell them that they're doing a good job? Maybe that's what they need. I bet you didn't think of this, right? So it depends on your approach, is going to depend on your own specific situation and your own boss. But I know that you think that your boss's job is to tell you you're doing a good job, but who's doing that for them? You might have to manage up, as they say sometimes. That could be part of it, all right? What if no one is doing that for them? What if they feel really unappreciated? You never know. Maybe they're not hearing any kind of praise or validation or anything like that. I mean, if it suddenly came from you, then, well, I don't know. How powerful would that be? I really want you to expand your thinking on this and apply some compassion and some understanding. And obviously there's a limit to that. I mean, if that's not what this needs, and if your boss really is truly just negative and harassing and it's in a bad environment, well, then that's going to require a different solution, right? You're either going to probably need to leave or file a grievance or do something a little bit stronger. So use some discretion and think about your own situation, but make sure you've gone thoroughly through these questions and these ideas to make sure that there isn't anything that you can do now from where you are to change this situation for the better. All right. So that's it, guys. One last note before I close out this episode. As always, I want you to know how you can take the next step with me, and I will help you work through this and apply these concepts. It's very, very different putting things into action than just hearing it on a show, right? This is good, high-level stuff, but I find that clients really need help sometimes implementing in their own situations the concepts taught in this show. So if you are interested in that and you want to work personally with me, by now you probably know where to find me, but it's careeruprising.com. That's my brand new website that just got totally remodeled and overhauled about a month ago. It looks fabulous, and it's brand new. I would encourage you to go there. Learn more about me and the show. If you haven't done that yet, you can also request a phone call with me if you wish, and we can talk more about whether or not you're a fit for one of my programs, and maybe we can make some magic happen together. Wouldn't that be cool? If you're also so inclined, you can call me. I have a new direct office number. It's 866-202-9322. Oh, I'm sorry, 9323. Let me say that again. 866-202-9323. All right. That is it for this episode. I have a fresh one coming at you next week as well. And by that time, it'll be about Memorial Day, about that time that these shows come out. So happy Memorial Day a little bit early. But I will be back next time. I'll talk to you guys soon. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard today, please consider giving the show a positive review on iTunes. It would mean a lot to me, and it would help to spread the word so that others can learn about the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait to connect with you again next time on Career Uprising.
This show was brought to you by InflowRadio.com. The best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.